Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show, a show that focuses on top real estate professionals who specialize in different niches of real estate. My name is Ben Kogut. Join me as we dive deep into the professional and personal lives of the experts of the real estate industry. Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show. I'm your host, Ben Kogut, and today I have a friend of mine, Blake Allen. He's the owner and broker of Allen Realty, which is a client-based real estate brokerage in Manitou Springs, Colorado. He's been licensed for over 30 years, and he has attended hundreds of local, regional, national exchange meetings and taken hundreds of hours of continuing education, a lot of it focused on simultaneous and 1031 exchanges. By the way, that's how Blake and I have gotten to know each other, is through our involvement in the National Council of Exchangors, as well as the Society of Exchange Counselors. And all this has led Blake to focus on better understanding his clients and the benefits that they seek. And we will be talking more about this because he has a very, very unique niche that not a whole lot of people talk about. He finds immense enjoyment in employing creative formulas to provide his clients real estate needs, often through his exchange marketing networks. Blake, thank you for joining me on the Real Estate Niche Show. Is there anything that I missed in your bio that you'd like to chat about?
No, I don't think so. I've been doing real estate a long time. I ever since I got my license while I was in college, went to Columbia University, and during that time got my license and didn't practice much to start with. But yeah, I'm exchanging is what I do. I go to exchange meetings and where we have met, the National Council of Exchangors or Society of Exchange Counselors. And that's sort of my specialty is exchanging and real property held for investment by myself and my clients. And we trade it for property elsewhere. But sort of the niche within the niche that I do is a thing called 1031 paper. Now, this isn't a formula that I invented. People have been doing it for a long time. But what it is taking the promissory note and deed of trust of seller carry financing and passing it through the 1031 process. So most people think that when you do a seller carry, you can't do a 1031. And when you do a 1031, you can't do a seller carry. And I sort of said, well, no, you can do that. And the reason is, and I guess the key to what I do is realizing that cash is nothing more than promissory notes. So once you realize that, you can make promissory notes and use them as cash. And that's
all right.
The thing I do.
That's incredible, and I get it. And I really want everyone else to understand it. So let's kind of step back and unpack that a little bit, Blake. Seller financing, like what is it and why would somebody do that?
Okay. So sometimes when you have a property that you want to sell or a property you want to buy, either way, sometimes you can't get the bank to agree with as much money as you have down and the price, and maybe the tenants aren't performing like they should. And maybe there's some reason you're buying it and there's some reason the person's selling it. Now, if you can put a property up on the market and people pay it cash for it and go get a new loan and buy it, great, that's easy. A lot of times you'll need in commercial property, 30% down, and somebody might not have 30% down. So traditionally we would do a seller carry when somebody might have 10 or 20% down, then get a 70% loan, but they're short 10 or 20%. A person like yourself would syndicate that 10 or 20% and you bridge that gap that way. An alternative is the seller could just take a note for that amount and they could either just pay taxes on it or they can pass it through the 1031 process. Now, I've sort of modified that by saying, well, if you can do it with the bank loan and their cash and the seller carry little note, why not just seller carry the whole thing, take the down payment, the 10 or 20% down, create a first and a second note maybe, and then we give those notes to the qualified intermediary and shop and buy the new property. Now, it's harder to find people who will understand it, so we're more limited in the properties that we're willing to take, or that we're able to take, I guess we should say.
Okay, so can I just unpack that a little bit more? So there are situations more often than people realize where somebody wants to sell or buy, but let's just take it from the seller's perspective. And that seller is saying, hey, I'll take, let's say it's $1 million property. I'll take $700,000 or $750,000 that you're going to borrow from a lender, because in today's market, you're going to get 70 to 75% loan to value. And the remaining, call it $250,000, $300,000, I am going to, basically create a note, which is another fancy way of saying another loan. I'm going to lend you that money that you're going to borrow, that you're buying from me. And therefore I'm going to have a note that you, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, is going to guarantee the repayment of, and there will be certain, just like any other kind of loan, there's certain loan terms that will be articulated within that note, that document. And then this is where you get really creative. You take that note and let's say $250,000, and you take that to go and so did I get it right? And if so, and then let's talk about those next steps.
Okay. So in that scenario, a lot of times we do it with first notes, but in that scenario, if the person is going to do, if they're not going to do a 1031, the seller, they're just going to take $750,000 cash. They're going to take a $250,000 note. The guy will pay on it. If he defaults, they'll have to come back and take their property back with a $750,000 debt against it. Okay. So some people aren't going to want to do that without them putting some skin in the game. A lot of times we'll use a note secured by something else to bridge that. So, in your example, it works. There's, every example is a little bit different, but in that case, the seller then would have to take to the marketplace if they're going to do a 1031. So one case, they'll take the cash, pay their taxes, collect their payments, and then get paid their $250 at some point. They got their $1 million. If they're going to go buy another property, they now have $750,000 of money, less whatever debt they had. All of this is always less what debt they had, but the $750,000 money and a $250,000 note. They can use those things to shop for their next property. Or if they have $250,000 on hand, they could actually buy the note from the qualified intermediary and use all cash to the next transaction. But part of the deal is the person who will buy it under those terms with the new loan will pay $1 million, whereas somebody who's paying all cash may pay $900 or $950. Okay. And so a big part of it from the seller's point of view is to get the price and then secure your equity at that value and now go forward with it. And
so this is a formula that people can use when there's a delta between what a market buyer is willing to pay versus what the seller is wanting. And so this is a way to bridge that gap.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this works for that as well. And then, all of it is, we're really doing it to exchange property. So the assumption is the person with $1 million property wants some other property anyhow. And how do we get them there? And one of the ways.
Can you get sorry, go ahead.
No, one of the ways is to get somebody who will do a seller carry. So I can give some examples. Let me give one that I have some classes. I have a 1031 YouTube channel called 1031 Paper. On there, they have some classes that are specifically about 1031 paper. So people can go and look at that. One of the examples I use is we sold an office building in Colorado Springs. I use this because I've gone through it so many times, and took some money down, carried a first note. It was a free and clear property. We took the note and the cash to the marketplace and went and bought a campground using that as the down payment and went and got a new loan. And then the guy with that who got the campground, who had the campground, sold it to us. He took all of that cash and the note and the rest and went and bought another property. And then that guy took that note and passed it on to somebody else. So it was passed through multiple 1031 exchanges. And in fact, the borrower had to call asking, who do I pay? Because, people said, hey, you paid us off. So,
over what period of time did all this happen? Was this all simultaneous or like within a month?
No, the multiple legs, I don't know how long it took them as they're passing it on down, but it took a while. So it took 180 days, it took 18 months, to do the first leg of this 1031 exchange, because it was a new thing. The market, it was in a tougher market. Okay. This was 8 years ago, something like that, 9 years ago. And the property would sell for a price that it wouldn't appraise for and couldn't get a loan for. That was the problem, because of the history with the recession and the rest. So anyhow, we took this to the marketplace and found the KOA campground. And of course, she had to go through KOA University. We had to do all our due diligence, everything else. So from the time we started the first, we got under contract with the person who wanted to buy it on the seller carry until we closed the deal took 18 months. Now the second deal closed a week after the first one. And then he went and within a couple months bought another property, and the note got passed on quite a bit. And the note's long since been paid off. It had balloons and a payoff. So it got paid off 4 years ago or something. So.
Can we get some more examples of how you've been able to successfully make this happen?
Yeah. Or I'll just give you an example now of when we're doing, I sometimes I just still create the note of get stuff I own and then move the paper. And so I'm out in the marketplace right now, actually to shopping with a bunch of paper. So I'll give you an example with with someone, I won't give all the specifics, but there are a couple of, there's $1.1 million of property that we're selling for a client. It's a 10 unit and a 5 unit multifamily. And for $650,000 and $450,000, we're creating a $400,000 first note and a $600,000 first note. So pretty high loan to value, 6% interest only, 5-year notes. And we're out shopping for some other property because my client needs to move the debt on the existing property to whatever she buys. And we'd like to deliver this property to the person who wants to buy it because my client's getting her price, and we're giving it to a person who wants to build his estate and doing good by that. So.
All right, let me see if I can unpack that. Because so you have a client that owns a property worth $650,000. And it's in some sort of multifamily property.
Yeah, we'll just use one of them as an example. Yeah, 650. It's a 10-unit multifamily.
And so you went to that seller and said, "Hey, in order for you to get that 650, I will advise you to actually create a note worth $600,000, right?" And so that's.
Let me tell you sort of how it worked. We still do the process normal. So 80 or 90% of my deals are still regular deals. Okay. Even though we do these creative formulas.
Meaning you put it on the MLS.
So it's on the MLS. It's on the MLS right now. We got an offer from this other person that I helped them get the offer together. We put an offer together for it for the full price. So now technically it's under contract on the MLS. Mm-hmm. And the thing is basically $50,000 down and $600,000 carry is what it effectively is. But the 50,000
is that going to be is that positive cash flow at those numbers?
With the 6% interest only, it will be positive cash flow at those numbers, because it's 10 units and the payment at 6% interest only on 600,000 is $3,000 a month. So it will positive cash flow right from the beginning. And here's a person who can, for very little down, get into a positive cash flowing property. How can we do it when they can't qualify and they don't have 25% down? Well, this is how we do it. What do we have to do? We have to go take that $600,000 note and go buy your property, you or any person out there in the world, and we'll buy your property so long as it's an improved property. Ideally, it has income or it has a future to it. There's got to be a reason we want to buy it. But what you'll get is, instead of cash, you'll get what I think is better than cash. You're going to get a note that bears interest at 6% with a balloon in 5 years. You can either take that and take the $3,000 a month for 5 years and then the $600,000. So if you really add it up, right, you're getting $780,000. And, if you add up all the payments and all the rest of it, you can either do it that way, or you can just take that note and do a 1031 and go to the next deal. And you're now shopping just like I am. And that's what the 1031 paper is. So we've created this currency, this interest-bearing note It's just like a Federal Reserve note. And we've passed it from one person to the other. And they can now pass it on or they can keep it. And so it's just like money. So we're not asking them, they don't have to take the 10-unit property. They don't have to deal with the tenants. All they have to do is have a mailbox that they can collect the payment and trust the person, of course. And if there's a default, then they will have to foreclose on the property. All the rules, everything we know about real estate still applies. Mm-hmm. So, but we are just adding a little twist, is that we're creating the financing, and we're using the financing as the vehicle for exchange. Because I discovered, say, with a mobile home park, okay, Ben Kogut probably, although he may want to own a mobile home park, but he probably doesn't want to own and manage a mobile home park. But he sure wants to either own the land under it or have a note against it. A first note against a mobile home park signed by somebody that you know, or you don't even have to know, somebody you believe will pay you, who has a stream of income that makes you believe that you will get paid. You would take that probably before you're going to take the property. And then you could just take it and have the cash flow. So you're getting most of the cash flow from the park as the lender. And, so that mortgage statement that everyone looks at when they buy a house and see that huge fat amount of money that is going to the bank from all the payments they're making, you're shopping with that fat amount of money instead of the smaller amount of money, is effectively what you're doing. And it just you need to have people who understand it, sellers that understand that, oh my goodness, if I sell it and I put the money in the bank, I'm going to get at 1%. Now it's going to be safe as heck and I never have to foreclose. And I'm not arguing against the FDIC, but 6% is better.
Got it. Got it. And so let's see. What would you say is the most misunderstood part about what you're trying to do here?
The most misunderstood part is that people think it's complicated. And I know that it sounds complicated, and I know it's hard for me to articulate it quickly, but it's not any more complicated than using money. Cash is promissory notes. The difference is you now get to add an interest rate and other things, okay? And then the people receiving the note, as you know, they don't have to only take the payments that way. They can do the JD Wentworth or JG Wentworth or whatever and say, I want my cash now. That note will sell for cash. It may sell at less of a discount than you had to discount the property. And in the meantime, you've made dreams come true, really, because you found a person that wants the property that the bank won't give the property to, won't let buy the property. So,
that is one thing that I really love about what you're doing, Blake, is that you're helping people, fulfill their dreams. And to that point, I know that you teach a lot of people who are maybe on the newer side of this industry, or maybe just to investing in general. And so I'm curious, like, what would you tell somebody that is just getting started in this business from this perspective?
Well, first of all, to me, it's most important is the person and who they are. If it's a person who looks like you or younger, okay, a young person, which is someone who looks kind of like you, is I say you buy everything you come across. And don't be stupid enough to think that price is an issue. So I think I've told you, and we probably have a minute to do it, is my dad bought a couple of duplexes in 1957 from his aunt for $1,200. We sold one of them in the 70s for $28,000. We own one of them still. They rent for $2,600 a month. Based on that and other clients and data I have, rent in 50 years for a 2-bedroom apartment will be $250,000 a month. Okay. Now my dad bought those things.
Wait, sorry. Say that again.
In 50 years, the rent in your 2-bedroom apartment shall be $250,000 per month. And it's not because the apartment's changed. It's the dollar. The dollar, that's what happens with dollars.
Is that are you implying inflation or something else?
That's normal inflation that we've historically had. So that's my dad's $1,200 2 duplexes. He extrapolated to today, and then today extrapolated forward. And a couple of my clients who were very old, the property that they've had for 50 years and the numbers. So the question I'd ask a young person is, so if my dad looks pretty smart, doesn't he? Because he bought that for $1,200, right? If he bought it for $3,600, what would he look like? Still pretty damn smart, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you don't make money when you buy real estate, okay? You make money by holding real estate and owning real estate and by being smart and transacting properly. Don't not buy a property because you think it's too expensive, okay? You're a fool. It's never too expensive. And here I sound like, I'm a real estate broker telling you to buy anything at any price. Well, yeah, because look at you don't have any wrinkles, okay? You're going to be here in 50 years, okay? You're going to collect the $250,000 a month, okay? What do you do at the beginning of the game of Monopoly? You buy everything you land on, right? And when you land on Boardwalk and you don't have any money, you flip your cards over and you buy it, right? Because that's how you win. So
the flip side of that question, though, Blake, is when does it make sense to sell then? But
it's hard to sell real estate. So I say you always buy. So you use what you have and you buy something else with it. But you sell it when you wouldn't buy it at that price. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with taking a profit. And as Albert Einstein said, man's greatest invention is compounding interest. So if you can compound your profits and your gains, that's when you sell and you go to something that's got a future and go forward. But if you like it, you keep it. And if you like it and you keep it so long you have no basis, you sell it and you buy it back again for more, and then you keep it again. And you just trade and swap till you drop. Eventually you'll die and your kids will do great.
Got it. Good stuff. Appreciate your sincerity. And I know. So we're recording this at the end of 2021. I know it's been a really great year for you, and I was wondering if you could maybe share a little bit of some of the lessons that you've learned, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, whatever you want to call this. What have you seen in the market? What kind of shifts or trends are you seeing? And maybe just sort of try to tie all that together with some lessons learned.
Sure. Now, as a guy who's got a lot of expertise or age in this, in real estate, I don't want to say anything about the different asset classes and where they're coming and going, because that's a science that's beyond this kind of a discussion. And I do have to say, I feel terrible for the deaths and the people who really have struggled through the pandemic. But for my business, it really is incredible. I closed 40 deals sitting here in my basement. I visited 12 properties. I closed 40 deals in 2020. Here in 2021, I've done just a hair shy of $25 million in sales, which is more than I've ever done. And it's because of, formulas and the different approach that I use to real estate is, I think, what's made a big difference in shifting. So when the pandemic first started, I had people who were in things that they were selling and they were going to do a 1031 and they didn't know what they should do. Should they buy something? What should they do? So we probably saw I blasted out on, to people as well, used a formula to take property that I had and said, hey, I will sell you property, lease it back and buy it back in the future. You're holding property for investment. We're following all the rules, but this way, you got a fixed 6% triple net and a 2% appreciation. And for me, I'm happy to give them the money rather than the bank. And these properties in Colorado Springs, okay, they appreciate about 10% a year. So I'm making 8% off your money on top of that. So it works for me. And so that's what some clients did. And then we realized that, oh my goodness, prices of real estate are not going to go down. They're going up and they're going up. And we should have thought about it. What happens when you squeeze the water in the garden hose, right? It comes out faster. Okay. And when they print $3 trillion, what happens? Everybody, I sold more land during the pandemic than I've ever sold in a year. Okay.
Wow.
Because people can't print land.
True.
Right. And so
hard assets.
Yeah. What I was talking about, my dad's 2 duplexes, right? That's it's versus, all we're talking about is versus the dollar. And this is then the whole crypto world will get arguing the same kind of thing. Real estate is a hard asset.
Right.
And that's all there is to it. It's like gold, but a lot better.
Amen. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Awesome. Well, let's pivot a little bit. You know, we're going to wind things down a little bit. I mean, I think that I call it like advanced commercial real estate, what you're doing. And I really want to applaud you and acknowledge you for sharing the wisdom regarding, 1031 exchange paper and all that kind of stuff. And maybe at the end, I'd love to get that website one more time and all those resources. But in the meantime, I would really like to know a little bit more about Blake Allen. And so one of the questions that I love to understand about people is, how do you like to invest in yourself?
Oh, I read all the time. I invest in myself all the time. I educate myself. I do. I take continuing education to a ridiculous degree, and I don't know why I book up all my time all the time, but I read, and reading. There's nothing like reading books by dead people. Any
what's your favorite book that you might recommend?
Oh God, I couldn't ever. It'd take me a long time to come up with a favorite book, but I'm William Faulkner's fourth cousin, another claim to fame. So I've read all the William Faulkner books. If you're gonna, you see me in my den down here with my Hopi stuff. The Man Who Killed the Deer is probably the best book about Pueblo life, written by Frank Waters from Colorado Springs. So how's that for a plug? For a local guy who won a Pulitzer Prize at Columbia University, and he's from Colorado Springs, and it's about Pueblo Indians. So The Man Who Killed the Deer, that's a good book.
Got it. And how do you like to invest in the community or the world?
I help people one person at a time. I don't really, I'm not for organized, religions or charities or things like that so much, although I can't say that there aren't, a lot of good things happening and things that I do or would give a little money to. But but really it's, we own rental properties with tenants that we help as best we can in the context of business, and just one person at a time. Really, it's making millionaires out of clients and younger people. I have a few clients that you've witnessed some of their success, and taking a young person from who's obviously done well and smart and knows what they're doing, and taking them from having a good credit score to having millions of dollars is kind of good, because then you see the good that they can do. So I can sort of multiply the good by helping them that way, and that way they can put more money out there, and real estate's fun. So.
Amen to that. Another question is, how does Blake Allen define the word success?
That's one I hadn't even thought about until you said. And the only way I could really define success is a state of mind. Success is a decision. Whether or not you're successful is your own call. So the guy, with $20 in his pocket, who's proud that he can go, back when drinks were $2, he's successful. And as long as he's proud and walks with his head, high, and everything's good. And I guess it's man or women, whoever it is, but you can be in the same set of circumstances, and here I can be in my basement and be, oh man, I'm here in the basement and it's the pandemic and everything's terrible. I can be, man, I'm so lucky that I'm here in this basement and I have all of these amenities and this unbelievably wonderful life, and so I can feel successful, or I can compare myself to people who are doing better than me and not feel successful. But success is a state of mind, and anybody at any level, you are successful because, as I say to people all the time, I used to be a bartender for years, is you and me are in the same room. We're here, right? Whatever the circumstances were, God or whatever you want to call it, we're in the same place at the same time. How are we not both successful? How are you not as successful as me? You're sitting there talking to me. How am I not as successful as you? I'm sitting there talking to you. One thing, I went to Columbia University, I got to meet James Watson. Okay. That's enough. He's Watson and Crick were the ones who discovered DNA, the structure of DNA, for young people who may not know who James Watson is. But as a molecular biologist, that's kind of that's like it's not even a Michael Jordan. It's a Mr. Dr. Naismith kind of thing. So
got it. Well, that's all incredible. I agree with you. It's a state of mind. And again, I want to applaud you for really, I know you're not claiming to be a pioneer, but you're really pushing forward these concepts that are different than, and I think it's a different thought process from what people are used to. And I think that's a really wonderful contribution to our industry, because it's going to, as it evolves, I think this is a really important direction for people to be educated about it. And to that point, I know you teach a class. Do you have any plans right now to teach this topic?
So what we're doing is we're rolling out a whole company at 1031paper.com. And we have you don't need to look at the website now. It's not filled out like it should be, but we have a YouTube channel called 1031 Paper. And what we're going to do is go to places like your town in Austin there and say, hey, we want to teach a class where I can teach the other part we haven't talked about is the exchanging, the whole world of the exchangers that I'm sure through your program, you're going to educate people as well about the world of the exchangers, but educating.
Go ahead and just kind of mention.
Go into a little. Okay, so there are groups that have been around for 60 years in our country. There are local groups and national groups of brokers who are experienced people who have focused on the client and benefits-based real estate and exchanging property, and we meet together. I just did my calendar. I've got 11 dates in the year when I travel and I meet people for 3 or 4 days at a time. And we exchange property, and we exchange about $1 billion of property in the room, or there's $1 billion in the book, and we do a whole bunch of deals. And most people don't know about that, and they don't have their broker in the room. And it's because once you're in the room and you've got your broker in the room, there's no reason to want there to be other people in the room other than the 100 people in the room. Well, 1031paper.com is to create a commercial vehicle that has employees and a commercial capitalistic drive to go and educate the world that this is what we do. And also, to teach people, you say what I do is different. To me, I say it's fundamental. And people don't, there's a big barrier to entry to get to the level to understand the fundamentals of real estate. And people do these financial spreadsheets. I'm a CCIM. I support it entirely, giving you the financial background and the spreadsheet and all of it. But then you get younger people who think it's a financial instrument and just do it by the spreadsheet. And real estate is so much more than that, and so much better than that, so much more beneficial than that people forget about that. You can do so much more. As you know, you can be really successful doing one thing, but there are all these other things. And, this whole real estate niche show is about the ways you can specialize and do one thing. Well, exchanging is sort of about doing everything. And the guys in these rooms, as you know, I'm a young guy in the room. I've been doing this 35 years. I'm a relatively inexperienced guy in the room. And we want to see more people who look like you, and frankly, more diversity as well. We want to see it reflect the whole country instead of just these people in the room, because as we get really rich doing this. This is not it really works. And I can't emphasize that enough. And you can start with nothing. I tell people, as you know, I started with nothing and I got most of it left. Right? That's
love that. Well, we're running out of time here, Blake. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on all that. Would you mind sharing with the audience how, if someone wants to learn more, what's the best way for them to learn more and get a hold of you?
Sure. It's to go to the on YouTube. There's a channel called 1031 Paper. You can email me if you want. I don't know if you want me to just give you my email, but it's just Blake. It's just Blake Allen Realty at Gmail, and don't abuse it. But the fact is, I'm open. I do consulting, hourly kind of thing. I can't really take new clients without having a co-op broker, but I'll find somebody to co-op. I can therefore do it in any state because I will co-op with a broker. And so we're going to go around and teach classes in every state to get the co-oping brokers. And really, is for the investors, they need to know they have to have their broker in the exchange meeting room. You have to have your representation in there. And if you're a licensee, you need to get to an exchange meeting. And, you've got a local group. If you don't have a local group, we'll help you form a local group. But, you probably have a local group you've never heard of. And you probably never heard of National Council of Exchangors or Society of Exchange Counselors. Just look them up, and you will find out, and you'll know what Ben Kogut knows, and what Blake Allen knows. And that's how Ben and I, that's how we met. And the friendships are actually probably the most valuable thing. So some of our best friends, as you know, are the other exchangers, and it's fun. And I can't say that enough times. It's this isn't a painful, miserable business that that people would think. And we're not a bunch of horrible capitalists, self-serving capitalists. We're out trying to help people. In fact, that's why I'm always bugged by the buzzer is I'm going to help the person who walks in hat in hand who has nothing, the same as the person with the $10 million property to sell. And that's what we have to do because we're public servants.
Amen to that. And that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Blake, for letting me interview you and for sharing your wisdom. And anybody out there listening, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe, hit the like button, give me some feedback or feedback to Blake. We'd love to hear from you as we are going around and sharing and kind of helping people as best as we can. So on that note, I really look forward to seeing you at some of the upcoming exchange meetings and making it a great one. So on that note, we'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks so much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Real Estate Niche Show. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me or the show, you can follow me on Instagram at Ben Kogut and at The Real Estate Niche Show. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.